Imagine epic intergalactic wars with an empire of psychic darkness wielders, fueled by rage machines clashing against the very might of Savathun and her Hive armies. Imagine worlds set alight with an entire species of squid people being driven to extinction. Imagine diving straight into deep, dark Vex digital spaces, confronting multiple delusional Osiris clones searching for their lost love, hundreds of devious Maya Sundaresh copies, finding lost to time guardian Praedyth, and encountering that dark monster biding its time yet to reveal itself. These are only some of the secret dramas playing out in the deep lore of Destiny's episode Echoes, all while we're running around that big exotic mission collecting samples and listening to memories. In this video, I'm going to go into some crazy secret stories being played out while the main story is slowly moving along. Make sure you stay on to the end, where I show how Star Trek: The Next Generation already demonstrated what the ultimate fate of the Vex could be. I think the potential and the promise of what we could have gotten was massive. We were told after the events of the final shape that the baby seed of the light and darkness could be anything, but one had gone to Nessus. In the end, it turns out long dead Maya Sundaresh, Golden Age, mad scientist of New Muna, is now controlling the Vex using an echo of command, and turning Nessus into a big old Vex milk factory. She has plans that need a lot of it, like a lot. Essentially, that's the main story. If you're a big lore nerd, you'll recognize the name of the conductor, as it was mentioned a few times previously in lore, always connected to Maya Sundaresh. So putting two and two together didn't really take that long, leading to the correct conclusion of the identity of the mystery conductor. Maya was literally found dead in the conductor's chair, which was the interface of the veil, from the veil containment logs. Sundaresh absolutely rates up there with Clovis Bray as a sociopath scientist of the millennium who has no problem using any means to achieve her objective, even if it costs the lives of every single member of her team. For me, the big difference between Clovis and Maya was Chioma Essie, Maya's long-suffering wife, who seemed to be the conscience Maya never had, and currently doesn't have. In the narrative, the conductor's ultimate goal seemed to get lost in the throes of all the missions. The grand goal was to return to the golden age of humanity before the Vanguard subverted humanity's destiny, in the eyes of Maya anyway. I think that more emphasis should have been on the growing evil boss tendencies that Sundaresh now harbours. True power breeds corruption, and Maya could have really been set up to be a grand-scale villain in this story by the writing team. So the thing that gave Maya all these new abilities was the Echo of Command, formed by the demise of the Witness and built around the memory of a Kugu commander called Takal. While only a passing reference in the game, it laid bare the untold story of the long-lost people of the Kugu, who were truly a sight to behold, showcasing immense technological skill and precision in war, and the unique battles that would cost star systems and eventually cause the demise of the Kugu's entire species at the hands of Savathun, Oryx, and the armies of the Hive. Imagine getting a taste of their psychic swarm ships that could react on instinct alone. Imagine what it would be like seeing one of their ships being destroyed and they taking the rage of loss and imprinting it on every single fighter to manifest a great wave for vengeance. Even just thinking about how this must have looked could be amazing, with the backdrop of the Hive tomb ships sitting, waiting, destroying. But in reality, what we got was the Echo of Command smashing its way into Nessus, and somehow reaching deep into the VexNet, which sent out a call that Maya Sundaresh answered. if you're not familiar with the VexNet, we've seen it a few times, but most recently in the season of the Splicer, where the last city was locked inside the VexNet to drain it of power. And the reason that time is called the Endless Night. Essentially, the Vex network, also known as the Nexus, the Vex domain, or as we do like to call it, VexNet, is a massive trans-dimensional and trans-temporal supercomputer-like virtual network the Vex work in. Don't get this confused with VanNet, where Guardians in-game complain about Crucible and the weapon balancing happening. Seriously, that's actually a thing. Next time we heard of Maya Sundaresh, she was found dead in the interface of the Veil. So apparently the VexNet and the Cloud Arc of Neomuna created a one-way connection allowing digital Maya to enter the Vex network via the Cloud Arc, but the Vex can't conveniently penetrate the Cloud Arc from their side. In Chapter 5 of Polyphony, we are teased with the strange inhabitants of the VexNet, now adding another mystery beast in the pantheon of already unique creatures that lurk in the deep lore of Destiny 2. The great quiet thing, the knot worm, kept its eyes closed and ignored the call. It was still too soon, it decided. It shivered, the motion forming cascading bubbles of new hypothetical simulations in which it did not shiver. These contradictions soured and burst, scattering nutrients into the network. Long forgotten to all, we learn of Guardian Praedyth, the last remaining Fireteam member who entered the Vault of Glass and was erased from time, but in this episode, we learn that he still lingers in the VexNet. We need to warn them. There's still a chance. Saint, hold on to me. I am owed this. Hurry, get Shim. There isn't enough of me left. Tell Elsie Praedyth still. Please wait. Warn them. I have to warn them. Whilst running the encore exotic missions many times, we cross paths with Rogue Cabal on the treasure hunt for the Echo 2, and eventually discovered that Yrix of the Scion Conclave was behind them. This enclave has long-running secret missions and is a rebel faction made up of Scion and Cabal that have infiltrated the ranks of the Red Legion, Imperial Cabal Loyalists, and Shadow Legion, all seeking to achieve a united Scion state. This is why, in the Greater War, they sided with the Witness against us, but even that was a ploy for power by Yrix. Remember way back during the Season of the Chosen, Zavala's Ghost Charge was knocked out by light-inhibiting tech, and a Scion soldier tried to take the life of Zavala. Well, it turns out that Yrix, the commander of this same enclave, was behind that assassination attempt, and generally doesn't have a warm and fuzzy feeling for the Guardian and Vanguard. So, welcome back into the lower limelight, Yrix. I'll touch on this because it was kind of cool to return to a version of the Infinite Forest, even though it was a bit throwaway and slowed down the main story even more of collecting samples for failsafe to fangirl over. Actually, Captain Jacobson and the Bataxels were a very nice touch. Well done, Bungie. The Vex have near always had a unified hive mind that drove all their drones and commanders, but in this episode, this could all change. There's an episode of Star Trek Next Generation that mirrors this storyline called I, Borg, which details the impact of a single drone who develops a sense of individuality outside of the collective hive mind. The episode tells of one drone Borg who holds the unique concept of I, where his entire collective only thinks in we. It's the seed of a potential that could cause untold devastation and could tear down the very fabric of the Vex hive mind and rip apart the single-minded nature of this species, fragmenting into many individual factions to deal with in the future, potentially. Maya Sundaresh's Vex, known as the Nessian Schism, are separate from the other Vex collective, but the potential for the influence of Maya and the echo of command to infect and rebuild the entirety of the Vex Collective is a much more impressive outcome that could lead to some variants of the Vex in the future that could also find the solution to the Vex's biggest problem to date: how to simulate paracausality. In my opinion, the main conductor storyline felt way more of an intimate character growth plot rather than the intergalactic mayhem and mystery hidden in the lore, and I can see why the narrative team just thought that this would be a good standalone story post the massive final shape drama we just finished. But what I thought the episodes were going to be was very different to what we got. What I thought was going to be the tying up of the Vex as an enemy threat left dangling definitely didn't happen. In fact, I'd say it was the complete opposite. We got the character drama, but the real action, clear stakes and ramifications were too shyly implied, or even fleshed out. I mean, the final story beat of Echoes was never going to be us outright murdering Maya Sundaresh. In the history of Destiny, we rarely, ever, truly murdered villains, apart from some raid bosses. But it did feel a little anticlimactic at the end of a 3-month journey just to get Maya sent floating down a river Radiolaria, and we just decide, oh yeah, that's grand, we'll let that happen, now let's get back. Let's just be honest and say, on the face of it, the story of Echoes wasn't the super engaging, drama-filled narrative that Bungie thought they were delivering. The first big reveal of Maya Sundaresh being the big bad fizzled out pretty quickly, and the temptation of Saint 14 didn't go anywhere at all. All the story parts tried to edge us Guardians to the limit, but then ultimately didn't land in a satisfying way, except for maybe Failsafe's journey. I actually quite like that as a side element. But the lore, buried deep in the Collections tab, delivered some high-stakes action that scoped a war spread over galaxies and a zoo of crazed creatures tucked deep in the Vex network. We saw the return of the hidden group of Scions hell-bent on destroying the Guardians, and a single thought that could tear at the very reality of the entire Vex as a collective. All happening on the sidelines of Destiny. My question, honestly, is why is all this happening off-screen? Why keep these high-stakes drama confined to the annals of Destiny history and not bring them to the front so everyone can see the imagination and uniqueness that these parts of the story are clearly infused with? Congrats if you made it this far, as most don't stay on till the very end, but I'm interested in what you thought of the episode and the outcomes, the main story and the deep dive lore buried in this episode of Echoes. Would you prefer to return to the standard seasonal structure or stay with what we've got? Would you have liked to see some of the hidden drama being fleshed out in missions and cutscenes rather than buried away in what we actually did get? Let me know below. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section, like, sub, and all that jazz. See you next time.